Everybody, Texas Stroker here, Lance's Performance Shop, Lone Star Mopars.com. It's Sunday night, 7 o'clock or so, March 1st, almost springtime here. Super nice day today. I'd say it's probably mid 70s, maybe lower to mid 70s. Had to do a lot of cleaning out here in the shop finally. Sadly, not enough time to play around, but I'm trying to stack up a couple of videos because I'm out of the tool stuff. Have car stuff, but need the tool stuff to offset it. Nonetheless, want to start out here. If you just watched the video where we did the German cable knife comparison, the Gedore, as you know from that video, since I had to reshoot it, it is pushed through its week of testing, if you will. The thing has done surprisingly well. I may not be a huge fan of the wood handle. Maybe it'll grow on me, who knows. But in terms of the blade performance, I have zero complaints on that sucker. Also, I mentioned that these alpha gloves, I was wearing those because I got the red ones really dirty when I was fixing a fence that blew over in like 60-mile-an-hour sustained wind, and just got stain on them. I didn't want to get the knives dirty. Obviously don't want to get this stuff dirty. Eventually I'll be doing something I don't care about and it'll come off. But I mentioned that these standard mechanics were on closeout. I thought it was just the black pair. When I was investigating the site while the video was uploading, it's actually every color scheme. I guess I thought it was a lime green with the pink palm, which may not appeal to some of you. But the black ones, they've got stealth. There's like a coyote tan color. I think there is a red pair as well. These were typically like 24-ish, somewhere in there prior to the discount. Now they're down to like 10 and change. So I mean, for around 10 bucks, you're getting a pair of pretty dadgum good gloves. And then, of course, you can use the discount code Lone Star. But this tool haul, it'll be number 26. It's been pushed back a long time because I had to wait a really long time for one of these items to come in. And it wasn't actually the big ticket item, believe it or not. But before we jump into it, we've got some teasers of what's to come. I mentioned casually in that last video that I'd finally kind of caved and used these two drivers from Hazet. And I wanted to kind of give you a closer look at them here, since this is a KC tool haul and not dedicated to pocket knives, if you will. I guess they turned 4 to 6 screws each and then twice over because I had to take off the dealer tags and then put the real plates on for some people. They both seem to have about the same amount of wear. The only difference is on the black tip on this cheaper plastic handle driver. It's just a lot more noticeable. Both performed fine. Again, that will be noted when we test them. There is the black handled one that we've not subjected to anything just yet. But as I can, if time allows, I like to kind of keep you updated on what we're doing. Eventually we'll kind of get the test squared away and everything. But it was a situation, I was helping friends out. They were putting plates on Audis. Kind of wanted to use this as opposed to what I had handy, so I did. And that is that. But tool haul 26, let's see, this goes back. It was a tool of the day back towards the end of October. That's right, 2019 here. And then most of it shipped not too long after in mid-November. But then one of the items, let me check my paperwork here, I did not receive until January 24th. So we had quite the delay on it. Was it worth it? We'll have to wait and see. That will probably be our second to last item because, like I said, it was not the big ticket item. So what do we want to get started with? Well, let's go ahead and let's bring in this guy right here. So we're going to go with Hazet. This is going to be their part number 603-13, if you know anything about Hazet. And this, I will admit, because these have been here since October, I did use this. And I try to clean it up again. The goal, when you have the tool haul, I want everything to be new if possible. That way I'm not like showing you some like rusted, busted piece of trash. And then if you're inclined and you think, hey, that looks really good, I want to bring it in, you have a clean playing field. If I were to showcase this, not disclose that it has been used a bunch compared to the others that are brand new, sealed in plastic, you might have an unfavorable opinion. Not trying to make that happen. But like I said, it was very light use. I just really wanted to use it, so I did. And I think that's an understandable concession after 3 months of a wait time. But what is this? Well, this is their 13mm. This is their standard wrench. Price on this sucker, Hazet, again, pretty expensive on this stuff, $19.26. Every once in a while you can catch some random sizes on sale, and they're most likely sizes you won't need or don't need, but if you check and you do need them, that's your ticket. So again, this kind of has more of a polished head like you'd expect. Most people seem to prefer here in America. I like the matte chrome, which is another plus if you bring in the German wrenches. I want to say their offset is 15 on that. Don't hold me to it. We're going to do way more in depth on this stuff. I'm trying to kind of breeze through it, but just to give you an idea, you've got essentially what we'll just say chrome, Hazet 603, that's going to be the series here, and then vanadium. So chrome, vanadium, Hazet 603 line, and of course the back end of the part number, the 13, that's because it's a 13 millimeter wrench. Now note here on the open end, let's actually zoom in a bit so you maybe see it better. On the open end, we've got the 13 right there. Coming up, we get down here to the box end and we have no designation. Flipping it over, we have no designation on the bottom. At the top, we've got the 13. So in terms of sizing, it's going to be oriented kind of in line with the head, if you understand. Like the Hazet logo is going to be parallel with the wrench. This is going to be perpendicular. So for some of you, I don't know, do you prefer the 13 there or do you want it here? If it's in like a foam tray or a rack, you're not really going to see it unless it's, a foam tray you've kind of designed. But I would kind of be inclined to say I would prefer it maybe flipped 90 degrees and in line, parallel with all that. It's not a huge deal either way, but again, we did pick it up, and like I said, it has been used. Not that you could tell. I cleaned it up pretty good. It was just a small job. That's some alternator crud I was doing, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to use the new wrench. So I did. No complaints. I will say this has a real good texture to it. That was one of the things that I noted. So moving on though, what we're going to have in play is going to come from Stahlwille, and its part number ST40101313. If any of you know exactly what that is, I can only assume it's because you study their catalog with nothing better to do with your time, or you order it a lot. And as we drop it down into place, you're going to be thinking, hey, that's another wrench. That is correct. It's a 13 millimeter wrench, and they've got the Stahlwille open box. Now, if you note 14 there, that's kind of where some people would run into issues with Stahlwille and the way they kind of label things. Open, okay, you can figure that one out, right? Box, we can logically figure that part out as well. And then the 14, what that is that's their series. And so typically, and what we've brought in the past, which I have here, is open box 13, which can be really confusing because this is a 13 millimeter wrench, just like this one. That's right, this one is 13, not 14. But basically, the biggest change is in the form factor here. So the 13 is on the top. It is going to be kind of standard, right? The 14 is going to be the long pattern. I really like their wrenches and everything I've done so far. Ultimately, what I'm kind of trying to do, I need some bigger size wrenches in SAE. My old Craftsman set stopped at, it might have been 3/4. I might have bought the 7. I can't really remember. That was a long time ago. But needless to say, I need some bigger stuff here. And I'm kind of feeling out which brand I want to pick it up from. That's sort of what we're doing. And the biggest difference, though, is when we come here to the back end. Again, we'll be going into way more detail later. But where this is offset, you've got 10 and 15 there. So again, don't want to spend a ton of time, but we'll just go ahead and lay that out as well. Now, it is worth noting that on the Stahlwille, they follow suit with Hazet. They've got the 13 kind of right below the head if you had them oriented in this manner as opposed to sideways. So that's a good question. That's an interesting thing to see what people prefer and why. I could see it going either way. It ultimately depends how you're storing them, I suppose, what's convenient. Now, of course, if you're hanging all of these on pegboard, you would despise having it perpendicular with the main text. But nonetheless, it is what it is. So if you want to sound off on that, feel free. Now, continuing with our Stahlwille theme. This is one of those items that it actually looks really good, and if you're ever getting a tool of the day and you're at like the $45 mark, this is the type of thing you can throw on, spend a little bit more money, ultimately save versus paying for shipping as well. It is their part number ST 770-7070000. And basically, if you don't want to enter that, you can just run with the 12481 part number from Stahlwille. Before I forget, the price on this guy right here, even though it's a long pattern, like significantly longer than the Hazet at the top of the field here, it's only going to set you back $17.28. So this was $19.26, $17.28. You're getting a longer wrench and you're saving $2 with Stahlwille. And Stahlwille, if you've never used one, makes a pretty good wrench. So coming in though, this guy right here, it's a scraper. Nothing fancy, nothing crazy. It's a 60mm one. The handle though is pretty impressive. Now, I picked this up just for general use. I've kind of had a hard time with scrapers, you know, particularly this style. And I had one, I have no idea what it is. It's probably something that, you know, came from a Walmart or something when I was real little. It's an awesome handle. It's super comfortable. It's held its edge. It scrapes very well. And everything I bought since, I've either hated the handle, or if I kind of like the handle, the blades have been terrible. I've had a couple chip. Like, you got to realize what I'm primarily doing with the scrapers, you know, is like undercoating type of stuff, taking it off. You know, not necessarily gasket surfaces, that wouldn't be as big of a deal, but you know, I'm using these in ways that they were intended, probably in the worst subjective way possible, and I found them to be lackluster, and I still use that old one with the really nice handle. So I kind of had this on my wish list, and I thought, you know what, now is the time. We're pulling the trigger. And you'll note that I was holding this in my ungloved hand. I really do like the way this feels. Now, ultimately, what I'm concerned about is, will it hold up over time? Like, will it kind of lose the gloss and kind of be rough? Will I need to refinish it? Of course, the bigger issue would be the blade. No, there's not a lot of flex with these. A lot of times, like when you buy the Harbor Freight 3-piece set, it's like $1, you know, which I have some of those. That's one of the things we're referencing. They flex a ton, which sometimes that's desirable, sometimes it's not. But this one's pretty stiff. And the coolest thing about this, it's not that big of a price jump. You're looking at $7.60, which again, you know, sometimes you can catch a little discounted sale on them. But if you're like me and you're just ticked off with what you've been buying recently, $7.60, yes, that might seem like a lot of money for a scraper, but think about it. How many of those El Cheapo sets do you go through in frustration, and then you hate it so much when you're at Lowe's or Home Depot, you think, hey, you know, that scraper might not suck, and you buy one, or you know, another 3-pack type of a setup. So I'm excited to actually use this thing. I started to use it, I guess, last Sunday, and I didn't. I used one of the cruddy Harbor Freight ones. But the Canadian geese, man, they come down here, you know, they spend the winter, and they hang out, and when they fly over from the lake nearby, they have a tendency to spread the wealth, if you will. And one of them was right in front of the front door. So like every time you open the front door and stood out on the porch, there's just this giant gob of green sitting there staring at you. And it turned out, what did I use? Krud Kutter. Okay, I bought this stuff along. You know what? This is worth showing you. So, all right. There's a long story as to why I have this, and I'm not going to go into, but this was brand new, never used. I probably had it in here close to a decade, maybe like 8 to 10 years. Never used it. I had to take the little foil cap off, and it was getting really dark. It was around this time, you know, so take away a little bit of daylight from me. So I shot this down there, let it sit a little while, then I came back and scraped it. And I was having to use my phone flashlight by this point, and I thought, man, that didn't do anything. And then it said, you know, I'd read the fine print, and it was like, scrub it too. And so I did it with a paper towel, and it left all the paper towel shards because it was a sidewalk, which again, I couldn't really see because by that point in time, I can't hold my phone and scrape. But long story short, this stuff actually got it gone. You can't even tell anything was there. On the side of the building, you know, which is the side of the shop right here, one of the geese you know, left its artwork there too. And so I used this crud that I've been cleaning the beams with inside, and that stuff worked very well there. Now granted, that's a piece of metal, it's easier to clean than a sidewalk, but started to use it, and I thought, you know what, I haven't gotten to make that video. I don't want to put this in a pile of goose shit. literally, and then come in and try to explain that, you know, why it looks nasty and has that strange green stain on it or something. So this one will be doing cooler automotive based stuff, and I did not subject it to the geese. But Krud Kutter, if anyone's ever, you know, like, do I get goof off, goo gone, what, I'm not sure where this came from, but it worked pretty well. Again, I had no prior experience with it, but first impression was pretty good. So what we are to now is kind of the final act of this one, if you will, and we will get started with this. So I mentioned, you know, this is something you kind of throw on, like maybe you're getting like a 4-piece set of jokers, you know, for $40 or something. Throw that on there, get your free freight. This is another item you can do that, like if you're even closer, you're trying to piecemeal, you know, like 10 or 12 bucks. What is this, you're asking? Well, that is a Gedore Keychain. So price on this one was $3.30. The part number is ridiculously long. What I will do instead of reciting it is just have the link down below. And again, this kind of tied in with what I was doing in this video, plus it was different. I really do like the Stahlwille remove before flight. It's not because I'm like going out, you know, and flying my plane all over to get breakfast on the weekends, which they do. There's a cool place outside Fredericksburg. That's a long story too. But anyway, the keychains just show up, the Stahlwille ones. That's the main reason I purchased them. They're easy to spot. Nonetheless, this one I thought was kind of cool. We might use it for something, and it's got a neat design as well. So again, $3.30. Throw that together with a scraper, you're out $10. Not a bad deal in my opinion. It doesn't actually say the country of origin there. Not, you know, it's a keychain. It's not a huge deal. But hey, if you're a fan of the brand or you're just trying to fill up space, you need a keychain for something, well, there's your ticket. Now, on a similar note, this is another item that I sort of had that logic with. Plus, this was like a big ticket purchase. What's coming up, okay? So it's sort of, this was celebratory items that tied in with it. I thought they'd be cool and functional. Now this one also has a long part number, which I will just again have linked down below for you. By the way, there's always timestamps, so if you want to skim things ahead of time, you can do that. It'll ruin the surprise, but you know, it'll save you time. Now this one sets you back $10.63. It's a little bit more exciting than the keychain. It's the hats. One of the things I loved about it was that blue on blue contrast. It's a good color scheme. Out here in the shop, it's either really cold or if it's hot, I'm probably under a vehicle where there's nasty stuff like scraping undercoating, for example. Not a bad idea to wear a hat when you do that, for the simple fact that keeps it out of your hair. So this one right here, we picked up a VHA. We got the KC tool hat. It's typically what happens if I'm working in one of the cars, I might leave it on accident, and then I'm out here and I need a hat and I don't have one, type of thing. This one is adjustable. It's the old belt style. I guess that was kind of popular in the 90s, right? Still functional. The hat's made in China. Luckily, like I said, this kind of surfaced before the whole coronavirus thing happened. But you got tools for life there. It is stitched. Again, I'm not a seamstress, but it looks like they did a pretty good job. I have had the hat on. Luckily, didn't get it too dirty. Just a nice little touch. Again, maybe you come in, you buy some Gedore screwdrivers, whatever it might be. If you're sitting at $40 and you could buy this and get free freight, that to me is the more logical approach, as opposed to paying $10 to $15 in freight. Just how I approach things. So, there that is. Again, I thought it was a pretty cool hat, and again, those are typically in stock, so take advantage of that. Next up, this is going to be, no, it's not. This is something that actually came in relatively quickly. So if I can get that off the top of it, we got, I believe, 3 more items here, and they're going to ratchet up quite literally. So this is the Gedore No. 7 13mm, you guessed it, spanner, or as I like to call them, wrenches. This follows suit here. We've got, you know, open box style wrenches, so that's what we're sticking with. That's what I prefer personally. And this is from Gedore. I'd always heard Colin at KC Tool, he said he really liked their wrenches. Obviously, we'd never had one. We'd only had Stahlwille. I did buy that tiny little 7mm Hazet, and I've actually liked it. It's pretty much the same thing as what you see there, the 603, just scaled down. But this is the No. 7 from Gedore. Again, think of their No. 7 not as a 7mm, but as the series, like open box 13, open box 14 means a little bit longer. This is just how they refer to them, as No. 7. Again, it'll be linked down below. The price, though, let's go ahead and cover that. It was, if we can find it, 1517. So it's actually the cheapest out of this line. Stahlwille coming in, next, and then Hazet being 19. So 15, 17, 19 if you're scoring at home. And as you can see there, we've got the Gedore name, we've got the logo, you got the number 7, you've got 13. What I like, and what I'll give them credit for, particularly since this was the least expensive of the offerings. Note, they've got the 13 stamped on the open end and down here at the box end. Now, flipping it over, they've got the same thing. Actually, they don't. Number 7 is here on this side. This one has Made in Germany 13, and then I assume underneath the SKU, we could find that. Now, something worth noting, again, we don't want to spend a ton of time on these just yet, where the Hazet and the Stahlwille sort of have like a more of a polished head and then the matte chrome bodies. If this looks like it's not, reflecting quite right to you, that's because it's a matte chrome head. And I'm excited to kind of see how that holds up, particularly on the internals, because I think you can tell. Like, if you look at this, you can almost see it's kind of like the textured look, right? As I flip it, if that looks like it's kind of blemished, that's not. It's actually got the same texture. Whereas if we come up and we grab the Hazet, okay, it's already throwing a glare at me, but this is a heavy texture, matte chrome. We get up here and we've got the more typical polished head, and then of course here it mirrors what you have on the open end. On the Gedore, it's juxtaposed to that. It's actually, let's just continue the matte chrome finish all the way to the head and even here on the inside. In fact, like if you run your pinky, or finger through here, very smooth, and that's got a little bit of texture to it. So small differences there, but I don't believe well, I'll tell you what, that does say Germany on the back side. Stahlwille also have Germany. Okay. Like I said, trying to breeze through it. You miss some details, we're going to come back in way more detail. But there's a look at it. Again, this is a first for me. It sort of has that same Stahlwille wishbone design. Pretty dadgum thin and very light. So we will set it down. Now, what could possibly tie in with that sucker? Right? I said we had 2 more items, if I'm not mistaken. The one that took until January 24th of 2020. Now, this is going to be very, very similar to what you have with the number 7 wrench that we just took out. It's also 13 millimeter. It is from Gedore. Its part number is number 7 UR. It's stamped the same. It's got the Made in Germany. But there's something significantly different about it. Let's start with the price. Again, keep in mind, this guy right here, pretty dadgum reasonable, $15.17. And then this one, $39.68. And the wait time, right? As we drop it down into the frame, you're probably thinking, well, geez, that's almost identical, man. What? You just got the long one, didn't you? Just like the Stahlwille, huh? You were thinking you were leaning towards these two, so you wanted to see if you like the, short pattern standard and the long pattern a little bit better. Maybe. It does have a little bit more length to it, but if I move my functional right thumb away, there you go. This is a ratcheting wrench from Gedore. This is made in Germany. It's worth waiting for. I don't know. We're going to actually use it and have to see what we think. But long ago, many moons ago, we brought this sucker in from them. This sort of converts a ratcheting wrench to a ratchet. Sort of a cool deal. A lot of you seem to like it. And I thought when I brought it in, it would make a lot of sense to go ahead and pair it with the Gedore ratcheting wrench. So we can finally do that. As we tuck that sucker in, we have now created the ultimate ratchet, possibly, at least for the terms of this video. And, if you can tell from the sound, it's not exactly, the highest tooth count or anything, cutting edge, state of the art, but it should be durable and it would get the job done. So very simple to operate. The selector switch, some of you will like that, some of you will hate it. It's not really objectionable, but it does rise up just a little bit. Again, we'll go into way more detail here in the future, but there that is. I thought this was a good time to go ahead and bring it in and celebrate. So we will set that sucker down right there. You can kind of see them side by side, get a feel for how they pair. Again, that's actually why I had these two. Again, this is sort of more tool truck finish from Viha, Taiwan, if you will. When we drop that sucker in, It's obviously got a different tooth count, which you can hear. But that's the catch with this one. This is actually made in Germany. A lot of the times what people knock on these, you know, it's like, well, you know, that's Taiwan, or, you know, they get the pliers from Vietnam, blah, blah, blah. That's an option. It's a very expensive option, but it is an option. And then, of course, there are the jokers here, which, to be fair, you know, that's Czech Republic, so everything's good. But the jokers, I actually really like them. I know a lot of people kind of knock them. I found them to be quite useful on both sides. The thing is, you'll note that you've got to flip this one, sort of old school, you know, to switch directions, which in this case would require pressing that out. This does have the selector switch. They make jokers with a selector switch, but they are not exactly the most affordable ratcheting wrench out there. So ultimately, we'll kind of, you know, compare and contrast these on down the line as well. But I just wanted to bring that sucker in so we could kind of do it justice, see what we think. There are a couple more options, a couple different routes we could take things, but it is what it is. Now, we are left with one item, and it is a good one. It was the tool of the day. It's something I'd had on my wish list for a long time. I didn't know if it would ever make tool of the day, and it did, and subsequently all of this happened. So I was planning to kind of do the wrenches, and I thought, oh, you know, ties in with what I've done recently. We're going to go ahead and make it happen. Keep in mind this is back in October. But this sucker is pretty cool, and I absolutely hate that I haven't let myself use it, because there's been so many times I've wanted to. And I'm going to grab it right now. Alright, so entering the frame, we have a familiar face. This is, of course, the Gedore Torquefix. This is the torque wrench that we showcased earlier. And I said I really liked it. And again, for me personally, you kind of saw what I had, where I was coming from with it. If you didn't, you can go back and check out the video. It was a pretty welcome addition to the shop. Now, something that I said was unique about it is the handle. And you can kind of see a little bit better now. What I'm going to do is bring this sucker over, and you can painfully tell that's it's sealed, right? You're probably kind of getting a feel. You're thinking, oh, you got the smaller ones, you can do all the inch pounds and everything right now, huh? Not necessarily. What this is just proving to you that it's sealed, sort of like when you get something in from Sandvik. But this is from Gedore. It is their part number 1993 TU-10, which try to get it to focus for you. There you go, perfect. 1993 TU-10. This was tool of the day. Okay, I can't remember quite what it was priced at on tool of the day, but it's currently $126.42. I know it was sub 100. I want to say low 90s maybe, and I felt like that was my ticket to buy this. I was very, very excited about it, still am, and I'm finally going to have it open so I can use it, because I've literally had it sitting here, and every time I wanted to use it, sort of like the Stahlwille scraper, I've been like, I gotta wait, and now we can finally put it to use. I'm super excited about it. And the TU-10, what all does that nonsense mean to you? Well, we're about to find out, but let's go ahead and celebrate. In my pocket, got the Gedore cable knife, which again, Germany, Italy, who really knows, but here it is after the week of work. Not too bad. I mean, it's out of a dirty pocket, but you can see mainly where the cutting's gone on. The stretch wrap, though, that I've been going through this past week and still have to look forward to as I continue getting this stuff dismantled, it's super thick. Like, I'm talking about, these are boxes that probably shouldn't be stacked, truth be told, but they are. And then they're going on freight lines, and so they really stretch wrap them, because that's the lazy way to do things. And it's built up and built up. Like, I'm talking like a third of a roll going around boxes, and I'm just able to come in and get my edge, and just, it's like butter. It's not like I'm going through one or two rolls or, you know, rotations around. It's like they've got that set on the spinner, and the guy stands there and he just kind of loses track of time or sings with a song. He's like, oh, gotta stop. And then I'm able to come in and just go to town. So I've been, again, handle, you know, remains to be seen, but in terms of cutting performance, more than satisfied, I would have to say. So, only makes sense that we let it work its magic here, right? And it's easier for me not to look through the camera when I'm cutting, so we're not going to. We're gonna set ourselves up over here. Probably could have pulled this sticker off Live update. I really wish I wouldn't have scribed the line in her. That's only one tiny section tore. Obviously, when you stick that down, we can repair it. But I think that actually would be something people would buy or, not mind having sent with tool purchases. So, note to KC Tool and Gedore. That right there is a part that I lost kind of around the perimeter where it just says, I guess, Germany. So that's unfortunate. But again, it's a sticker, so we can make it work. So what I need to do now is come in and actually cut here where we have the part number. Awesome. And we should be free, right? Unless there's something clear that I'm not seeing. So begins the long process of getting our not boring bar out of one of these cases. Which again, I will say the Sandvik cases do seem to open a little bit quicker, but there's a tease for you, the lid's off. So we'll set that on top of the sticker, beautiful. Open it up, set the other side here. Got some directions, some notes. Oh, this thing looks real nice out of the package. Okay, this is cool. Let me get my ungloved hand. Okay, so we've got kind of a hard plastic here, and then we've got the rubber overmold, which actually feels really good. It's not, I say tacky, I don't mean like it's sticking to my hand, I just mean like it grips, sort of bites back, if that makes sense. Flip it around, we've got the Gedore logo, spinner, love the blue color. You got the part number there, in case your friends come over and they're like, that's the coolest thing I've ever seen, I've got to have one. You can say, oh, take a picture, I can go order it. But right there, again, you get a good look at the handle, so it does kind of have the comfort grip going for it. Coming up here to the top, you can see the ratchet head, got made in Germany here. Flipping her over, selector switch. That's actually, it looks raised in the camera, but it's actually very streamlined, I would have to say. You'll note that you've got sort of that line in the middle, left, right, and then a line. We've got the push button release. Let's check that out. Looks like a pretty solid mechanism. So what's the deal? You just super happy that I acquired my first real Gedore ratchet. There she is in business, if you will. Coming around. Feels pretty good. Now sitting here, we've got a lock. This is something I had specifically asked about, because what my thoughts were, this is going to be a big, hopefully super strong, super overbuilt, heavy-duty ratchet. And while we've got the Hazet 916 HP, which is absurdly strong, you go right or you go left. This note in this neutral position, straight up and down, sort of where you see that line, I want you to pay attention. I'm not touching that, right? I'm just rotating with my wrist. This is locked. You know what that means? You know what I'm going to do with this? I'm going to break stuff free with it. It's going to become a breaker bar for me, in addition to having ratcheting capabilities in the same frickin' tool. I don't even know that they advertise that as like a real selling point, but to me, I was like, oh, this is fantastic. And I stand by that. I haven't used it yet. We'll have to make sure it works like I want it to, but if I bring it out and we try to get this whole massive thing in the frame for you, going end to end here, you're probably thinking, okay, well, what's the deal? That's maybe a little bit longer than most half-inch ratchets, but come on, buddy, aren't you too excited about it? Well, not necessarily. Now, I have no idea how this exactly works, because we've never done it, and we obviously haven't read that. But somewhere in here, I'm thinking this collar. No, where? It's got to happen somehow. Is it a release of some sort? Oh yeah, okay, figured it out. It's a release, up and down. So when I come in, even with my bad thumb, I'm able to pull back, and you're thinking, what's this all about? That's just a defect with the handle. You got to get rid of that thing. Send it back and get a new one. Hold on. I'm going to take this, bring it down here. Oh no, what's going on, you say? Well, my friends, we've just made this absurdly long. So case in point, we're going to start the train right here, kind of in line with the transition between the handle and the scraper of that Stahlwille tool. Sending it to the left. Here she comes. Carrying on. Where's the end? Oh, there it is. That's right. This thing is absurdly long now. As you can see, when I set this down, no sleight of hand, no magic trick. We're going end to end, basically the same length as my work mat here, which, what does that measure? Let's consult the Black Widow. we're sitting in about 23.5. So if I just rudimentarily come in on the top of this sucker, that is pretty much where we're at, 23.25. That's awesome. What this is, the TU-10, why I was stressing about that earlier, it's telescoping. It's a telescopic reversible ratchet. Okay, literature here I'm opening up. I'll try to find the highlights for you. Again, just so you know I'm not lying, telescopic, right? So you can go left, you can go right. They want you to maintain 90 degrees, that's understandable. When you want to pull this out, they want you to pull back on the handle and then pull forward. Now the reason that I like what they did here, I don't have to stress it to you, there's 8 stopping points. It's not like you're either standard length or you have to go all the way out to 23 inches. Maybe there's a situation you need something longer to break something free, but you've got space constraints. You can stop at 8 different positions on the length of this shaft. It's pretty dadgum cool. Now, they don't want you standing on it, to do your lug nuts or anything, but hey, I'm sure it could probably take the abuse. If I remember correctly, this will withstand 600 Newton meters as well, which is translating over to foot-pounds. That's a lot. Probably more than you will ever need. And on top of that, one of the neatest things, for something to be this absurdly long and have that kind of capability and to still have a push-button release, quick release, whatever you want to call it, that's pretty dadgum cool. And to get it on tool of the day and save like a good $30 or more, it makes that even better. So they've got what they describe it as the handle, the telescoping unlock mechanism, the 8-stage telescopic tube, the switch lever, locking mechanism for plug-on tools, and then of course the square drive with a wrench. So I'm pretty ecstatic about this pickup, and now that it's open, now that I've formally taken it from its package, it's gonna get used a lot, and it's gonna be super cool. So again, never have had just a standard Gedore ratchet. We've sort of acquired quite a few from other companies now, not necessarily that was a goal going forward, it's just curiosity type of thing. I loved the Torquefix though. If you recall, that was actually sent out by KC Tool. It's a huge upgrade for me personally, and on top of all that, as I try to position that well, I loved the handle on it. This looked eerily similar in terms of handle style, and I gotta tell you, this is a killer looking ratchet. Now, it does have a little bit of flex there, but I mean, it's nothing. When you consider that we've gone as far as we've gone, I mean, we extended this thing out. The specs say it'll go 400 to 800 millimeters, so you basically double the length. Okay, again, we come in here, we pull back, and we come in. There would be stop 7. There would be stop 6. There would be 5, I think. Maybe we skipped one. 4. Man, that's really hard on my thumb. My apologies. I think we skipped a couple. But you get the idea. Okay, we might make a standalone on this maybe after I've used it a little bit. But basically, we come in. Again, if you have a thumb that can function unlike mine, it's probably a lot easier. But there's 8 stops on this ride, and they might be easier to get to with a thumb, but hey, it is what it is. The fact that this locks out the ratchet and turns this into a breaker bar, particularly when you consider, maybe we're coming in, and obviously it's going to be hard to have a cheater bar for that. Have to be a lot bigger. Maybe you don't want to chew up your comfort grip handle. You've probably been in situations where maybe you're helping a buddy, they don't have like a decent or legit breaker bar. If you've got this thing with you, you can go to town. It's a little long, I would say, for a 1/2-inch ratchet. Not that that's a bad thing, but a lot of times they will be probably, maybe have the head terminate there type of length. It does seem a little bulkier because of this section, but again, it is telescoping in that region. Ultimately, though, imagine the ability, you've got this in your truck, and your wife or a daughter or a girlfriend or whatever calls you out, and she's like, hey, I've got a flat tire, can you come help? Not always going to have something with you, or maybe you're riding shotgun. If you've got this with you, you've got a breaker bar and a ratchet. It's It's fantastic. I don't know if anyone else picked this up when it was tool of the day. If so, I hope that you have used yours and you can let me know what you're thinking of it. But I was super excited about this thing. I'm even more excited now that I've actually let myself open it. And on top of everything we've cited, dare I go into the aesthetics of the blue and the black, which is pretty much the best color scheme one could have. Now, it's a little bit lighter of a blue. And since we've got these Hazets here, their blue is a lot lighter. That's kind of more of like a light cyan or something. But this looks really, really good in person. Not quite Mopar blue. It's a little bit, maybe a shade or two lighter, but it looks super good. Getting my non-gloved hand off of it, again, this feels awesome in hand. It is heavy, don't get me wrong. But that's a small price to pay for the versatility, in my opinion. One more time, coming over to the side, since, I don't know, I would assume a lot of you would want this for the ratcheting function, but with the breaker bar and being able to lock it out, that's just awesome. Super awesome. Doesn't seem like a terrible ratchet mechanism, though. So, I think it said the return angle was like 7.5, so we're not like quite state-of-the-art or cutting edge, but we're not like super old school or cheap. And I think given the fact the capability this has in terms of its torque rating, I don't really have anything to complain about. So this, like I said, I'm super freaking excited about. I'd seen this in the past, kind of was interested in it when they sent out the Torque-Affix, and I kind of got to experience that handle and everything. I thought, you know what? We should really pick that up. And then it's something you kind of, well, I don't really need it. You know, it would be super handy and nice to have. But then when it was tool of the day, that's why you check back. So that's what we did. This is what we picked up. Again, this thing is going to be started to be put in use immediately. Very excited about it. Similarly, this thing I can now use even on, you know, artwork from geese, I guess, if that's what it comes down to. It's warming up. Maybe they're going to go back to Canada. I don't know. But that's what they do. They head south, and, you know, they might be well behaved and come eat bread from your hand up north. Man, they get down south for the winter, and, you know, they just make a mess of everything. So, kind of more of a Canadian geese are actually kind of mean. when you're out like at little parks and stuff, you know. But anyway, all that aside, this is what we brought in this time. We got the 1993 TU-10 Telescopic half-inch drive ratchet / breaker bar extraordinaire. We picked up a ratcheting wrench from Gedore. I'm pretty excited to kind of see how that stacks up again. I've been a pretty big fan of the Jokers, I'm not going to lie. Of course, VHA, it's very hard to beat their stuff for the price, but if you're going for German, Czech Republic type stuff, you know, they're kind of out. This is our first ever Gedore wrench right here, because we didn't have to wait an eternity for it like we did for the ratcheting side. The long pattern Stahlwille, I'm really liking what I've experienced with that in hand. This one we didn't bring in, just have it here for comparison's sake. And then of course the Hazet, which was fine the time that I used it. And it's hard to explain. You know, you've sort of got like matte chrome, matte chrome, matte chrome. The Hazet finish, it's just got like more, I don't know if it's, you know, shot on, applied thicker, however you would describe it. But it does seem to have a little bit more tack to it, if that's important to you. If you're always constantly having wrenches slip, that might be something you consider. But again, ultimately, this is just for me to play around with and use on the side and kind of decide which brand I prefer to invest in really big, not really big, you know, but like 15/16 inch, inch and an eighth, inch and a quarter, that type of stuff. Because those do, as you get up in size, so increases the price. So I want to kind of make sure I like what I'm getting. And this, for me, was a logical way to research it. I thought it would eventually make a good comparison video as well, so there's that to boot. But, of course, we've got our scraper, some wrenches, the keychain, the hat, telescopic ratchet. It's already getting cold out here, unfortunately. Still need to eat supper, but had a good time. I hope you did too. Again, if you picked this up on Tool of the Day, and you used yours, which I hope that you did by this point in time. It's really sucked keeping that thing closed up that long. I want to know how you're liking it. Is it your go-to? Is it something that you kind of keep just in case? Have you kind of used it once or twice and you've fallen back to something that you're more accustomed or, you know, used to using? If you were bringing this in to use at work, you know, if you had a situation where you were constantly, you know, breaking free seized bolts, this would be kind of hard to beat, you know, particularly if you have to bring your own tools, or maybe, you know, like you're a field tech, you have to go work on heavy equipment. something like this would be super cool. Imagine not having to have a giant tool bag or always lug around, you know, like a 2-foot breaker bar. Imagine having something that would fit in most, you know, like 26-inch toolboxes or bags, and then can extend out to be nearly 2 feet in length. Not a bad setup, really. So I'm very excited about this. I'm kind of, on all honesty, I don't want to sound too dorked out about it, but I'm pretty excited to see how the scraper holds up. So again, if you've experienced the same fate with scrapers I have in recent years, this one might be of interest to you. They also, I said it once, but they did a really nice job on the handle, just in terms of the Stahlwille. That's sort of like stamped in, if you will, and then they blacked it out as well for visibility. So I'm pretty excited about everything, not gonna lie. And on that note, I guess I'm gonna retire this guy for now. He, like I said, has been a trooper, and I think we'll go Hazet because, again, despite what people tell me, I'm kind of thinking this and the NWS are pretty much the same. I still have a whole bunch of crud with the thick stretch wrap to go through, so we're going to jump into the Hazet and see how we like it. But nonetheless, this guy has performed very well. So if you watch Forged in Fire ever, I guess you would say your blade cuts, Gedore. So good news there. So anyway, I'm gonna quit rambling. Might try to crank something else out, who knows, but super excited about this stuff. I'll have links as always down below. Any insights, any information, opinions you want to share, feel free. The end goal, of course, is to hopefully expose people to new items, maybe stuff they didn't know existed, maybe showcase it. It's always nice to see something in person, get someone's quick first-hand impressions as opposed to just see it listed online. And then, of course, if a lot of you have used these heavily, maybe you hate Stahlwille and you hate Hazet wrenches and you only use Gedore, by all means, tell people and let them know why. But, as long as people come in, they find the video, they're interested in something, and then there's first-hand feedback for them. I can't ask for much more than that. So anyway, I'm going to quit rambling. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you back here for the next KC Tool Haul.